we go. All right, while we welcome everybody in, I'm going to get myself ready to push some buttons to get us streaming over to Facebook at the top of the hour. Let's see.
I do hope we get some people showing up. We had a good turnout, for the meditation one, which, well, I mean, it was more than a handful.
Yeah, that was good.
Which for that is pretty good, actually, because the book club, and this was the first time we did the meditation. So we're doing guided meditations now every Wednesday afternoon for 30 minutes.
Oh,
that's
nice.
awesome.
Okay,
yeah, with
good.
different authors and yoga instructors and meditation peoples.
Oh, that's going to be really nice.
Yeah.
Ooh. Welcome, everyone. Hello. We are going to start at the top of the hour. We're just letting everybody in. Go ahead and use the chat function to let us know. Yeah, Aliza knew what to do to let us know where you are joining us from this evening.
So there's somebody named Anne here, and I'm curious if that was a person who was here this afternoon for the meditation session too. I don't know why, it just popped in my head that the name looked familiar. Oh, hello from Illinois. Oh, I can't remember. Maybe it was somebody different.
We'll see if she types up and says, yep, that was me.
That's right. You're in Portland, Emma. I keep thinking you're in Seattle, but that's not too far.
Portland. Yeah, not too far at all.
Stephanie from New York City. Great.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I was just reading the news for New York, though.
Oh yeah, it's
very
rough.
sad and scary.
Oh yeah, I watched the full press conference from our governor every day, and it's off the chain, y'all.
So you're Jersey.
I'm in New Jersey. Yeah, I'm right across the water.
You're rocking. Are you rocking, or am I moving?
No, sorry, I'll stop. I'll stop. I don't want to make you seasick. No, I literally, in my office, I put the glider that I used from nursing my daughter, and it is the best office chair ever. Because, you work from home, so you want to be able to move in different places, so this is my glider area. Absolutely.
Oh, by the way, those of you who are here so far, this is called the behind the scenes chatter.
Yes,
so
welcome to
this gets cut out when you get the video next week.
Yes.
Of this whole presentation. This stuff will be cut out. But
and speaking of,
move your little screen down a little.
Me?
There we go. Fixing the headspace.
There you go. Speaking of, if at any point the video lags for anyone, we're just going to keep going. Well, we'll take a pause and wait for it to catch up. Zoom has been absolutely overwhelmed in the last 2 weeks, as we can all understand. So we're just going to be patient and ask for your patience as well, and just stay with us. If you get kicked off, jump back on. These things happen, but always know that next week they'll make it pretty, and you'll get a gorgeous recording. So, okay, so gorgeous.
we're
very handsy tonight. And if you're just joining us, we're going to start at the top of the hour. Please use the chat function to let us know where you are joining us from this evening. And just to let you know, during as we go through the webinar, if you have questions, please put your questions in the Q&A little feature you have down below. And when it's Q&A time, Aliza and Emma will do their best to hammer out as many questions as possible. Okay, so starting in 4 minutes.
Hold on, in this 4 minutes, I want to do the little commercial plug. We're going to talk about this company just a little bit more in a few minutes, but at the moment, I just happen to have some products on hand. We were talking a little bit earlier before we went live that Circle Labs, I'm testing these out for review, the tincture and the salve, and I find them to be very good, very high quality. And I was saying that the tincture in particular, I've tried lots of different tinctures already since I do the reviews, and they have mint and spearmint and all these flavors, orange and lemon. But this one tastes what I would call herbaceous. Or
Earthy.
it tastes kind of like cannabis, but light. And what did you say, Emma, when I said it tastes?
I love a tincture with plant particulates. All those little
do it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. All those phytonutrients. That's what you want. Really, if it tastes like weed, that is good medicine.
We love it.
I've been really liking it a lot, and during these times of stress and stress, it's very helpful. And then this is for my neck arthritis. It is also very helpful too. And I'm starting to get a little bit of arthritis in my hips. So this is, anyway, I just had to put a personal plug in. The little bit of commercial will come in a bit, but that was a personal, legitimate, honest assessment.
Legitimate.
Now,
how about for a little logistics? We're going to start in 3 minutes, top of the hour. You are going to use your chat feature to let us know where you are joining us from this evening. And if you have questions throughout the webinar, go ahead and put it in the Q&A function. And Emma and Aliza will do their best to get to as many questions as possible. Stay hydrated, get yourself something to drink, get your notebooks. We're going to start in 2 minutes. Ladies, I'm going to start the process of getting us live over to Facebook. So I'm going to go muted for a minute.
Okay. And for anyone who hasn't attended our webinars before, this is the behind the scenes backstage chatter prior to the thing starting. You'll know when I start because I'll get all sort of formally voice. And then we'll do a little back and forth. I'll drop in some slides, and that's the program portion. So the first part of the slides, I'm giving some background, and then we move into Emma doing her thing. We've got a lot of cannabinoids to talk about today, and there is a giveaway. I'll explain that in a minute, and we have a sponsor, Circle Labs, so I will talk more about them as well. Then at the Q&A portion, we will come back on video so we can talk with you. As Erica mentioned, there's a Q&A function to send your questions. You can also put them in chat. It's just, we'll go back and forth and find those. So feel free to chat as much as you want in text on the side. And we're almost ready. Let's see. Is Facebook cooperating? You never know. Yeah. That's Facebook. They have a brand new way of doing the production studio for their Facebook Live, and it doesn't work. Or at least it didn't work for me at all. Facebook. Welcome everyone who has just come in. Please take a moment and type in where you're from in the chat function if you have access to that. I'm coming to you live from the Seattle area. And Emma, you're in
Portland, Oregon.
Portland. We are like jazz hands. We're just super.
It's going to be a lot of gesticulation.
We normally don't put our hands up here in the screen, but for some reason we just feel all touchy-feely.
Maybe it's being cooped up inside, not being able to touch anybody, just reaching out to you through the screen.
Yeah. Oh, Eloise is calling in from the Bay Area. Oh, I found out about Circle Labs from Eloise, and I thank you, Eloise. It's phenomenal stuff. I got to text somebody really quick to let them know I'm about to go live. Let's see. Okay, I promise I'm turning off my ringer. Everybody turn off your cell phones.
Just trying one more time to get us to broadcast over to Facebook. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but this will be our last try, and then we can get it going. Let's see.
Good. Technical things. Again, welcome everybody. Type in where you're from, and right now you're in the behind the scenes backstage chatter. I was going to say we're in the green room, but we're not really in the green room, but in the green room as we are getting ready to go on stage and turn this thing on. All right. So now is that enough? Oh, yeah. So here's apologies for anyone who is in here and surprised. Our last email, I think we're all time zone challenged, and so our last email did have the wrong time. But when you did get your email, it should have given you all of the information after you've registered. And by the way, we've been telling everybody Zoom is acting up. So I'm hoping that you guys hear me and see me right now, but we've got a frozen Emma Chasen at the moment.
Okay.
I can hear you, but
Okay,
cannot see movement.
Okay. Okay. Well, you'll be back. You'll be back soon. And if not, you will you will be frozen.
You won't be able to gesticulate the whole time.
No, it's all the gesticulation that has
it does actually.
Down the system.
It does. Maybe if you turn off your video and turn it back on, sometimes that helps.
Hi from Wisconsin currently. So Facebook's not working
It
today?
is not.
Okay.
So we're just going to have to give up on that.
Okay.
It is 2 past the hour. So let's get going. One more time, I just want to let everybody know to use the chat feature. Let us know where you're joining us from this evening. And you have a Q&A function that you can ask questions at any point, and our fine ladies will get to answering as many as they can during the latter portion of our webinar. Anything else? Are we ready to go? Oh, Emma, you're still frozen.
No, Emma's
still frozen, but can still hear you. Which is
yeah, perfect.
Fantastic.
And we can hear you too. So at some point when I have us turn off the video, maybe when you turn it back on, it'll come back on. The first bunch of slides are me anyway. So Erica, is it safe for her to log out and log back in?
It actually is. Just as long as mine holds, everybody else is good. To that point, everyone, if your internet, if your Zoom lags, just be patient. Sometimes it might kick you out. Just jump back in. We're just going to keep going. And next week you will get a recording that's all polished up and made pretty for you. Okay. Ladies, you ready to go?
Yep. I'm going to get started. You'll know in 3, 2. Hi, I'm Elisa Sherman. I'm the CEO of Ellementa, and this is our monthly webinar. This is the March webinar with Emma Chasen. We bring her back. Well, it's getting to be a tradition, Emma. Like every year, we're bringing you back to talk about cannabinoids. I think later in the year, of course, we'll be inviting you back to talk about terpenes like last time. But we love having you here and are really excited to get going. Again, we might have a little bit of technical glitches because Zoom is just so overloaded. Everyone loves this platform right now, and we're all just trying to connect. So with that, I'm going to say, let's turn off our video. I want to bring up some slides and we'll get this party started. Let's see. Now I've got to click some more. So hold on a minute. And here we go. We are Ellementa. We are a global women's wellness company. And this presentation is brought to you by our company and Circle Labs. I'll tell you about them in a moment, but you are in the right place if you've come to learn about cannabinoids. We're here with Emma Chasen and Circle Labs. Let me tell you a little bit about them. If you came in a little bit early, you saw I held up the bottle of tincture or hemp oil and their salve. They are highest grade CBDa, and you're going to hear from Emma what CBDa is. Emma, make a note because I don't think we have a slide for the acid forms, so make a note. We're going to talk about that. And CBD. Phytonutrients. We just were talking about phytonutrients earlier. So again, Emma, if you want to talk about that later too, make that note, and I'll try to remember to remind you. Single cultivar, single source, organic, all of these amazing things. This company has very high quality hemp oil, and it's so interesting that they have CBDa. So I can't wait to hear more about that. Has cannabinoids, terpenes, and oh, how do you pronounce this, Emma? Flavonoids or flavonoids? Flavonoids? She must be muted. I think she might be muted.
Okay, I'm back. Flavonoids.
Oh, flavonoids. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
I should have practiced. I should have looked it up on the internet. Everything about this product, I have to tell you that this is, besides the fact that they sponsored, and we're really careful who we have as sponsors. And this was highly recommended by Eloise Thiessen. I believe that's how I pronounce your last name, Eloise. Who is highly regarded as well. So I just feel super confident about talking about this company, and I also personally am enjoying the products. So that's the commercial, and it's really important to us to bring good products to your attention. And we have an offer here. Use the promo code Ellementa for 20% off. And our goals today, it's to empower you with better information about cannabis for your health and wellness, and to introduce you to Ellementa, our company, a women-owned company in a women's wellness community. Besides Circle Labs, I do want to tell you that we have a giveaway, so you should stick around. It's a Go Higher CBD and Cannabis Journal. So we'll tell you who the winner is toward the end of this program. So please do stick around. And what is Ellementa? Well, we host events. Up until this month, we were hosting in-person events for women to learn about the wellness benefits of the cannabis plant. And now we're trying to move our gatherings, as we call them, online, and bring you more online programming during this time. We want to connect with you, and we want to connect you to experts and to really good information, as well as our community. We also help you find quality products. Not every product is going to be right for you, but we want to bring to you the products that we have actually tried ourselves and like, that come highly recommended from people we trust, and that have the ethos, not just sort of practices and principles, but the ethos of the type of companies that we would like to work with. We like to say we work with companies, not just with products we like, but with people we like. So that's an important piece in terms of who we and what we recommend to you. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we also have a book out. I co-wrote this book, Cannabis and CBD for Health and Wellness, with Dr. Junella Chen. If you know June, she's also quite amazing. We have incredible women literally at our fingertips here with our virtual webinars, and she's one of them. So I hope that you'll pick up our book as well. So I'd like to know a little bit about where you're at with your knowledge of cannabinoids. So Erica's going to work her magic and throw a poll up here. Which of these cannabinoids do you know the least about? So at this moment, panelists cannot vote, but you can. If you've got access to this poll, just click on the cannabinoid you know least about. We'll give you a few minutes. Emma, which of these are your favorites, or is your favorite not even on this list?
Oh, so to consume, I really like CBG. When it's expressed in higher concentration, I think it's great, and we'll talk about all the reasons why in a little bit. And I also do really love THC and THCv. They just have to be in lower concentrations for me. And the analyte that isn't on this list, which is Delta 8 THC, I do really enjoy because you get a lot of therapeutic value, but you don't get too intense of a psychotropic experience, which is something that I like to avoid.
Interesting. I have heard of Delta 8. I've seen a product, I want to say, that is by a company called Level, I think. It's in the Bay Area. I believe they have a product specifically, if I recall correctly. And there's another California company that has THCV. Oh, are you going to show the results? Okay. CBC looks like the winner. CBC.
Cool.
But then also tied for second place are 4 of them: CBG, CB, and THCV, and CBDa. All right. Well, let's continue. We're here with Emma Chasen. Emma, why don't you tell us a little bit about Eminent Consulting, or what you're working on and what you do?
Sure. So hello, everybody. Hello, Ellementa. I'm so happy to be here again, teaching about cannabinoids. I am the co-founder and co-owner of Eminent Consulting, which is a global cannabis education and industry consultancy. I don't love the term consultant because everyone and their mother in cannabis is trying to be a consultant, but it does give a good big umbrella term for all of the different things that we do at Eminent. I mainly focus on education and creating accessible, scientific-based education to implement into business models within the cannabis industry through many different lenses. So that can look like creation of educational marketing collateral, as well as creation of online courses. So I do have online courses that we wrote, created. I star in them, I guess you could say, because I do a lot of teaching on video, and that's been really fun. And we also do some management consulting and strategic planning, just from the like purely business standpoint, doing a lot of work in Oklahoma and Missouri right now.
Oklahoma and Missouri?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Can you elaborate on why those?
Sure. So Oklahoma and Missouri, they just kind of came up in the last year. Oklahoma is like the wild, wild west of weed. There is hardly any regulation. It's a very laissez-faire model where almost anybody can qualify as a medical patient. And in the rules, I kid you not, it is like, okay, if you're a cultivation facility, you have to have sufficient security measures in place, period. No specifics around it. At all. It's really wild. It's really wild. And that's led to a huge increase in licensures there because there's such a low barrier to entry. It only takes about $2,500 and a driver's license to win an application in Oklahoma. So at this point, I believe currently we're almost at 6,000 cultivation licenses for the state, and around 3,000 dispensary and around 2,000 manufacturing, I'm pretty sure. So insane competition, but also a lot of patience because anybody can get their card, and a lot of room to go into that market and dominate it because a lot of the companies popping up are like run out of people's sheds in their backyard because there are just such lax regulations. So that's been a really interesting project. We have a great client group down there who we've been helping bring them to market, their vertical operation. And it's been fun to have so much room to play in, and also to be able to give our clients what we experienced in Oregon out here, as well as in other West Coast states that legalized earlier, and kind of give them a good roadmap for how things will go, especially with such a crowded market. There is going to be an imminent collapse somewhere in the future. And so making sure we do our part to help them weather that storm as it comes, and really be a leading example in the state of Oklahoma for what cannabis businesses should look like.
Wow. That is fascinating. I mean, I knew that they were a legal state, but I had no idea the state of that state.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, this is so interesting, but we are going to move on to a little bit of an overview. So some of you may be quite new to the cannabis plant and the chemical compounds within it. And I will not profess to be able to speak authoritatively about cannabinoids, but here is the tiny Reader's Digest version that I'll go through first, and then we will hear from the true expert. So cannabinoids are actually phytocannabinoids when they're in the plant. And not only cannabis, but other plants have phytocannabinoids. They're molecules. And in the cannabis plant, the ones you know of are most likely THC and CBD. And then you saw that other list of a number of them, but there are over 100 of them that have been identified. And later in this session, Emma's going to talk about two new ones that have been more recently identified. Now, your body also produces natural cannabinoids called endocannabinoids, endo inside of the body, cannabinoids. And some researchers and scientists believe that a depletion of your endocannabinoid system can be causing some of the illnesses and diseases that we have, but also stress can deplete your endocannabinoid system. So nourishing your endocannabinoid system can be vital to good health. Terpenes being another chemical compound within cannabis. They're also in different plants, fruits, and vegetables. And to say that the thing that Emma says, terpenes are like the aromatherapy of cannabis, and they provide various effects. Here pictured, you'll see lavender in the bottom corner, and lavender has a terpene called linalool in it. Well, cannabis has linalool as well. Mangoes have myrcene, so does cannabis. And so if you think of cannabis as this super rich plant, a super plant or a superfood, that's pretty accurate because it's just so abundant with all of these different chemical compounds. Most other plants have some, but not as many as the cannabis plant. And I will always say, Emma, if I'm wrong about any of this, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
I get a little bit nervous when I'm speaking with you because I'm like, oh gosh, did I get this right? The tiny Reader's Digest version of the endocannabinoid system is that the endocannabinoid system, or the ECS, is a system that goes throughout our body, not just humans, but mammals. And I think also some fish and some birds, I believe. But some living creatures have the endocannabinoid system. Now, this lays over other systems. It acts as a modulator or a regulator of our systems, like our respiratory system, reproductive system, digestive system. So any system that's in our body has some receptors that are part of the endocannabinoid system. So why haven't we heard about this? Well, scientists were doing some research on why cannabis works well with the human body and brain. And in 1989 and 1990, identified some receptors in this system called CB1 and CB2. And they act like locks. And cannabinoids are like the keys that unlock specific effects. And so this is just a really simple way of saying that the cannabis plant has chemical compounds that work really well with our system, the endocannabinoid system. And that's why cannabis can be medicine, or is good medicine. So this is a session about plant medicine. We are talking about a plant. The plant in its natural form, or close to its natural form, it is not like buying something over the counter. So plant medicine takes time to find your right dose. It's really good if you have guidance from an expert who can help you go start very slow and work your way up until you find what works well with your body and your brain. So anything we say tonight, we are not doctors. We are not medical professionals or health practitioners. So do not take this as something for you personally. We are speaking in generalities. You really need to see somebody to learn more about cannabis and how it can work for you. So I think this is where I turn it over to you, Emma.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That was a great little Reader's Digest. Thank you. And so today we are talking about cannabinoids. They are the dominant secondary compounds found in cannabis. So when I say secondary compounds, plants have primary compounds, which are necessary for the plant's survival. This means that they are responsible for conducting photosynthesis, for transporting nutrients, etc. Secondary compounds, while not necessary for the plant's survival, are absolutely necessary in the plant protection or the defense of the plant from pests, pathogens, and predators. So our cannabinoids and terpenes fall under that secondary compound umbrella, with cannabinoids being the main secondary compounds found in cannabis. Over 112 different cannabinoids have been discovered at this point, and we're still really working out what each of them do. But there is this main cohort that we at least have an idea, looking at many different rat and mice models, of how they came to be, how they interact with physiology. Secondary compounds, while they're really, really good at protecting the plant, they can also be really medicinal. They can cause what we say novel changes in our physiology. So they can cause many different physiological effects, and they can initiate signaling pathways that will then translate to pain relief, inflammatory relief, anti-anxiety action, antidepressant action, immune modulation, etc. So when we look at the cannabis plant in its raw form, these phytocannabinoids are in their acid form. So that means that they have an acid group on them. And in this case, the cannabinoids are carboxylic acids. So they have a little carboxyl group that exists on their molecular structure. So THCa, CBDa, CBCa. CBGA is going to be our mother cannabinoid. So cannabigerolic acid, that is the cannabinoid that produces all of the other cannabinoids that we're going to talk about. I call it the stem cell cannabinoid. And when these acidic cannabinoids are heated or dried, they're exposed to time and temperature, then that carboxylic group will detach from the molecular structure, and you will get the quote unquote activated form of THC, CBD, CBC, and CBG. And this is called decarboxylation. So to break down that word, you are decarboxylating. You are removing the carboxyl group from the molecule. So anytime you light up a joint, or you put some flour in your vape, or you heat up flour in making edibles, you are decarboxylating those compounds. The decarboxylated compounds, they can bind to our receptors more efficiently. The ECS has a variety of receptors, as Lisa mentioned, and those receptors cannot really engage with our phytocannabinoids unless that acidic group is removed. And so that is why we must decarboxylate our flour in order to convert them into the quote unquote active form. Not to say that the acidic cannabinoids do not have any therapeutic properties themselves, because they do. And most oftentimes we can access those therapeutic properties by juicing cannabis leaves and flower.
Okay. So by the way, I forgot to mention, Emma, make sure you tell me when you'd like me to go to the next slide.
Oh, yes. So next.
Okay. Oh, but did you mention the last one? Because I always find that very interesting, because it's not only heat that can change the chemical compound or the structure of the chemical compounds, but also light and air. So it ages,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
It's a different, so then you end up with different chemical compounds as well.
Exactly. So if you do leave your flour out on the table, let's say, and expose it to photons of light as well as oxygen, then those compounds will degrade over time. CBN is one of the most notable that is degraded from THC. CBN has a much sleepier effect. So if you've ever smoked really old weed and just gotten sleepy, it's most likely because you are consuming a higher concentration of CBN. Delta 8 THC is also a byproduct of Delta 9 THC. It's just a slightly different analyte from our Delta 9. And even that slight change in molecular structure will cause it to have a different effect on your physiology. Delta 8, as I mentioned earlier, I really enjoy because it gives a high therapeutic action with less of the negative side effects associated with Delta 9 THC. And so when we talk about harvesting cannabis, storing cannabis, the way that we consume cannabis, all of these things will have a dramatic effect on the actual compounds you are consuming. If you consume fresh raw flower, you will be consuming a much different variety of compounds that have a much different slew of therapeutic properties than something that has been decarboxylated in that moment versus something that has been aged.
Got it. All right, next slide. Here we go.
Slide. So what do cannabinoids actually do? So cannabinoids, they do interact with our endocannabinoid receptor system, or ECS, in a number of ways. There are those two most notable receptors, our CB1 and our CB2 receptors, that exist throughout the body. So our CB1 receptors, they're most densely populated in our brains, in our central nervous system, and THC can engage the CB1 receptors to offset a variety of signaling pathways that include our psychotropic pathways, or what makes us high. There's also our CB2 receptors, which are found all over the body, most notably on our spleen, as well as on some of our immune cells. Unfortunately, cannabinoids do not really effectively engage the CB2 receptor, and that's why I'm such a full proponent of the full spectrum extracts of things that retain terpenes, because there is a notable terpene that can engage our CB2 receptors, and that is beta-caryophyllene. And so in order to maximize your therapeutic effect, you will want that full variety of compounds in there to most effectively engage your endocannabinoid receptor system. Now, our endocannabinoid receptor system, cannabinoids, at least our major cannabinoids, THC and CBD, can only really engage with one, the first cannabinoid receptor, so our CB1 receptors. And thinking about all of the therapeutic properties that cannabinoids have, how is it that all of those properties can be signaled on just one receptor? Well, they can't. The reason why cannabinoids are so therapeutic, why they have such a value, is because they are quite promiscuous, especially CBD. It's a quite promiscuous compound. It can act on a variety of receptor families beyond the ECS. So it can talk to our opioidergic system, our system that sets out our own endogenous opioids to modulate pain. It can talk to our immune system. It can talk to our serotonin and dopamine receptor families. It can talk to our TRPV1 receptor families. It can engage with many different physiological factors, such as COX1, COX2, PPAR gamma, ones that modulate inflammation to help reduce inflammatory response. So the cannabinoids interact with our body way beyond our ECS. They actually engage quite a lot of different receptor families, as well as physiological factors, in order to facilitate an expedited healing response. The ensemble effect. So the ensemble effect is something, as I mentioned, I'm a big support of full spectrum extracts, and that's because of the ensemble effect. The ensemble effect, originally known as the entourage effect, is a theory that is popularized by Dr. Ethan Russo. The entourage effect, it moved to the ensemble effect just because scientists believe that entourage, that term, led people to believe that like THC was the star and it carried with it the entourage, whereas actually it's an ensemble, like a group performance. The ensemble all equally carries therapeutic value, and when put together, there's actually synergism. So synergism is defined as a multiplicative effect instead of an additive effect. That means that you put two compounds together and their response together is actually a multiplication of what their response would be just additive. And so this happens with cannabinoids and terpenes, flavonoids, many other phytonutrients found in the plant. As I was saying, beta-caryophyllene, which is the terpene, can engage our CB2 receptors effectively. This is really important because our cannabinoids can't really engage our CB2 receptors that effectively. They have very low binding efficiency. And so if we want to fully maximize the therapeutic potential of our experience, we have to include terpenes along with cannabinoids, along with those other secondary compounds, flavonoids, etc. Now, there are even some synergisms among cannabinoids, which we'll talk about as we go through them, but THC and CBD are an example of a synergistic relationship, as CBD cannot bind to the CB2 receptors unless THC is present. And this is a really important point that I like to drive home in our discussion of cannabinoids, because THC in very low concentration, even if it is bound to that main binding site of the CB1 receptor, it will open up a secondary binding site on that same receptor where CBD can come in and bind. And when both are present in low concentration, it will actually help to reduce the psychotropic activity of the experience while enhancing the therapeutic value of the experience. So all of those negative side effects associated with THC, such as anxiety, paranoia, elevated heart rate, memory loss, those can be offset by including just a little bit of CBD in there. And without the THC present, CBD could not even effectively engage our endocannabinoid receptor system. So that's just one example of how much these compounds rely on each other, how much they need each other in order to best facilitate a medically efficacious response.
Okay, so just to clarify, THC really primes the pump or the receptor to better receive CBD, and CBD in turn affects how THC operates, so sort of moderates it a little bit to temper that high. Is
Yes.
that correct? Oh, good.
Exactly.
You said something that for anyone who is new, if you could define for us full spectrum versus broad spectrum versus isolate. So like, first of all, what's the difference between when people say full spectrum or broad spectrum?
Yes. So full spectrum is a term that you will see on many different hemp and cannabis products. Full spectrum means that you are retaining that unique fingerprint of the plant material in the final product. So you have not only CBD and THC, but also all the minor cannabinoids that were present in the plant material, all the terpenes that were present in the plant material, flavonoids retained as well, phytonutrients retained as well. There is a schism that I look at full spectrum extracts as, okay, is it a full spectrum extract that you can ingest, or is it one that you can inhale? If it's an ingestible, you will retain more of those phytonutrients, more of the compounds such as chlorophyll that give it a kind of dark color, because it's safe to eat those. Whereas in something that is designed to allow you to heat and inhale it, you do not want to include those phytonutrients in there as they can damage your lungs. And so with full spectrum extracts that are meant to go in a vape pen, for example, you'll want the unique fingerprint of the cannabinoids and the terpenes and the flavonoids, but not so much the phytonutrients. Now, full spectrum, as I said, is the one, in my opinion, that will deliver the most therapeutic value. However, there is, of course, the concern of having any THC in the product, especially in terms of people who are getting drug tested or who are scared of getting drug tested. Even a little bit of THC may trigger a positive drug test. Therefore, there is broad spectrum extracts, which broad spectrum you really only see in the hemp community and on hemp products. Broad spectrum is basically just full spectrum without THC. So they have removed all the THC. There's still CBD, other minor cannabinoids, as well as terpenes. Now, beyond that, you can see distillate, which distillate is cannabinoids. It's a mixture of cannabinoids. There is not one distillate out there that has terpenes retained throughout. If there is a distillate that has terpenes in it, they have added those terpenes in at the end, because the way that you distill cannabis and cannabis extract is that it has to go through typically some kind of thermal distillation, usually a steam distillation. And when you introduce that kind of heat to fraction off those compounds from their other compounds, then you are degrading your terpenes. So a distillate is a mixture of cannabinoids with a very high potency of one or two cannabinoids, and then a bunch of minor cannabinoids as well. Now you can further refine that product to get an isolate, and an isolate is just one single isolated compound. So if it's a CBD isolate, you just have CBD in there. You don't have any terpenes or cannabinoids. If it's a THC isolate, you just have THC in there, no other terpenes or cannabinoids. And these four distinctions, full spectrum, broad spectrum, distillate, and isolate, are the four most popular end products, I'd say, on the cannabis and hemp market right now.
Got it. And then you did say one other thing. And by the way, we're about halfway through our time. We probably will go over a little bit. Again, if you have to leave, anybody, well, not you, Emma, but if anyone else has to leave exactly on the hour, we will send you the recording next week. But you did mention another term, psychotropic. That's different from psychoactive. Can you explain the differences?
Yes. So this is also very important, especially as we talk about CBD. Psychoactive means that it is affecting your brain. It is activating different receptor pathways in your brain. For example, an SSRI or an antidepressant pharmaceutical is psychoactive. Doesn't necessarily make you feel high, no, but it does engage with different receptor families and neuronal pathways in your brain to initiate a change in physiology. And so when we talk about cannabinoids and terpenes, they're mostly all psychoactive. They're all getting into your brain to enact some kind of change, to initiate a signaling response. Psychotropic means that you are altering the mind's perception of things. And so that is more in line with you feeling high. THC is psychotropic and psychoactive. CBD is only psychoactive, not psychotropic. So that's an important vernacular that needs to be adopted when we look at these different compounds and try to describe the predicted effect or experience that they will have. I also want to note here on this slide, each person's reaction is individual, and this is true. So every single person has a unique endocannabinoid receptor system, what we call a unique ECS tone. And your ECS tone is the way that your body operates in terms of its endocannabinoid receptor system. It's the density of receptors that exist on your body. It's the way that they signal. It is your proclivity for those receptors to engage with cannabinoids and other terpenes. It's the amount of endogenous cannabinoids in your system. Every person has a unique ECS, and that ECS will also change. It changes every day, just like your body's physiology changes every day, dependent on the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, how much exercise you're doing, how much you're eating, what kind of food you're eating, your mental health, your emotional health. It is very, very subjective. And therefore, sometimes even CBD can make somebody feel a psychotropic response because of their own body chemistry. However, for the most part, CBD stays in the psychoactive zone, and THC is both the psychoactive and psychotropic.
I'm glad you said that, because there are certain CBD products that I have taken where I felt more of an effect. Generally, when I take them, I don't feel an immediate effect. I feel it over time. But there are certain products out there that I'm always wondering, like, was it processed differently? A lot of those nano emulsions or nanotechnology products, they seemed like they just hit me faster, and it feels like a rush in my head. Sometimes not so pleasant. So it's interesting that you said that it could be a little psychotropic depending on your system, and maybe depending on the product and what else is in it or how it's been made.
Definitely. And also depending on your dose, as everything's dependent on dose. I mean, I have taken, just because I like to experiment with myself, I've taken like close to like 60 or 70 milligrams of CBD at one time. And I definitely felt a certain type of way. I was not totally sober. I wouldn't call it high per se, but my state was definitely altered, and I can notice it. And it's interesting that you bring up the nanoemulsification, because that will increase your bioavailability. And so by increasing the bioavailability that your body has to this compound, you will absorb more of that compound into your bloodstream, and thereby it can have a greater effect.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're going to break down some of the cannabinoids now, starting with THC. So just let me know when you're ready for this next slide. I am here to turn the slides for you, Emma.
Awesome. Thank you. So THC is like our superstar, right? Almost everybody knows about it. THC is actually one of the most studied and researched analytes on the planet. So if you hear a lot of people, especially regulators and lawmakers, talk about how we don't have enough research on cannabis, we do. It's just mostly about THC. THC is the psychotropic compound found in cannabis. It is the compound that most breeders have been breeding for, at least historically during Prohibition, because it is the compound that gets you high. However, there is so much more to Delta-9 THC than just getting you high. It reduces pain. It can really help to ease nausea and vomiting, especially in patients who are undergoing chemotherapy. It can increase appetite, aid sleep, and treat PTSD. A really fun fact about THC is that it has 20 times the anti-inflammatory power of aspirin. And so it is also a huge anti-inflammatory agent. CBD definitely gets the spotlight for anti-inflammatory action, but THC also huge anti-inflammatory action. Recent studies have also proven and shown that THC is incredible at reducing pain from endometriosis. So pain in your reproductive organs, it's incredible at doing that. And by helping people who have PTSD manage their symptoms, it does so by not necessarily attacking our opioid system or any of our other pain response systems. Instead, it helps to prevent crosstalk between the emotional centers of the brain and the pain centers of the brain. So with PTSD, there's just constant firing between the emotional center of the brain and the pain center of the brain. They cannot stop talking to each other. And that's why the trauma response is so traumatic every single time. When you are experiencing a resurgence of a memory and you feel that deep pain as if you were there, THC helps to reduce those symptoms by separating the pain body and the emotional body. So you will still experience that trauma memory, but it won't be associated with such pain and emotion because those two centers of the brain are not chit-chatting as much as they would. So I think that that's also a really interesting way at how THC can be helpful for the modulation of pain in general, because when we experience pain, it's often associated with a really sad and anxious emotion. And so if we remove that emotion, then we're able to override the pain more objectively and get over it easier.
Very interesting. All right. Oops. There we go. THCV.
Okay. So when we talk about THC, just that term represents a family of analytes. So there's actually quite a lot of different analytes or analogs underneath the THC umbrella, THCV being one of them. THCV stands for tetrahydrocannabivarin. And the main thing about THCV is that it suppresses appetite. So especially when you combine THCV with CBD and a terpene called limonene, which is found in our citrus varieties, it will help to dramatically reduce appetite and promote weight loss. So that's an example of a synergism. THCV can also help to regulate sugar levels, and there is some promise in it being able to help manage symptoms of Alzheimer's as well as Parkinson's. THCV and the THC family in general seems to have great success in reducing a protein in our brain called the amyloid beta protein. And that protein and the growth of that protein is what happens in Alzheimer's patients. And so by preventing the growth of the protein and then even being able to reduce it in Alzheimer's patients, that has shown a great promise for the management of that disease. THCV, it is psychotropic, so it will get you high, and it is mostly found in South African varieties, especially German poison seems to have a quite elevated concentration of THCV. So if you are looking for something that does not initiate the munchies, or as I call it, bottomless pitting, then look for a variety that has THCV, CBD, and limonene in it, and it should help to suppress your appetite.
Ooh, all right. Didn't know that. Now, we don't have a slide for this, but you did talk about the fact that there is an acid form and that the acid forms could have therapeutic benefits. THCa, could you say a word or two about that?
Absolutely. So THCa, I love it. I think it's great. It has such an increased bioavailability when we consume it through our digestive system because of that acid group. So when we do consume cannabis via oral ingestion, the product, the compounds, they get passed through something called first pass metabolism in our liver. And this is because they have a high fat content, typically, because they are often infused into fat. They are fat soluble. So they move through our liver, and the liver's job is to make sure that we're not consuming anything that's too foreign. And I mean, cannabinoids, phytocannabinoids, even though we have our own endogenous cannabinoids, these cannabinoids that come from a plant, they are foreign compounds. So the liver wastes out a lot of them. And we end up getting quite a low bioavailability when we consume things through oral ingestion, unless they've been nano-emulsified or nano-encapsulated to help bypass that first-pass metabolism. Now, another way to bypass first-pass metabolism is by consuming the acidic form of these cannabinoids, THCa being one of them. You can get high concentrations of THCa easily by juicing the cannabis flower and the cannabis leaves, and it will deliver some dramatic anti-inflammatory action as well as some pain relief without much of the psychotropic high experience.
Interesting. All right, we're moving on to CBD.
CBD. So CBD continues to have its moment of fame, which I think is great. It's an awesome cannabinoid, a major cannabinoid, the one that is found dominantly in hemp, and now what we call craft hemp in the industry, cannabis that has been bred with very low levels of THC, high CBD, but still retains all those yummy terpenes and flavonoids in there. It stands for cannabidiol, and as I said, it is very promiscuous. So it gets around to over 15 different receptor families, engages with a multitude of factors in the body, and it helps to achieve a lot of different therapeutic action. Most notably, it's great at reducing inflammation as well as neuropathic pain, and it also is great at helping to modulate and reduce anxiety and depression because it does interact with our serotonin receptor family, which our serotonin exists to help regulate and stabilize mood. So CBD can help to also regulate and stabilize mood in that way. As we talked about, CBD is non-psychotropic. If you consume enough of it or dependent on your own body chemistry or what you're consuming, you can definitely feel an altered state of consciousness. But for the most part, especially at a normal kind of functioning dose, you can take it throughout the day and you won't feel really any altered state of consciousness. CBD also, fun fact, can help your body to accumulate more of its own endogenous cannabinoids. So as Eliza mentioned, our ECS exists to help us prevent disease and also to recover from disease quickly. And there's actually a theorized syndrome called clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome that scientists believe is the cause of many health issues such as migraines, IBS, Crohn's disease, where Western medicine or modern medicine doesn't really have a good answer to those diseases. And so scientists and researchers now believe that those diseases are a result of a deficient ECS state. A deficient ECS state means that your body doesn't really have all of the endogenous cannabinoids that it needs to in order to perform effectively. Now, there is an enzyme called FAAH that is responsible for the degradation of endocannabinoids, specifically anandamide. And FAAH is created when we're stressed. And I mean, with the state of the world right now and just in general, everybody is in a chronic state of stress. And so we have a ton of this enzyme, FAAH, just floating around in our bodies. And cannabinoids, they are made by the body on something called on-demand synthesis. So when they're needed, the body makes them immediately, doesn't store them. But if there is so much of this enzyme, FAAH, floating around because we're all chronically stressed, well then immediately upon the body making the endocannabinoid, the enzyme FAAH destroys it and degrades it before it even has a chance to enact a physiological change. Now, what CBD can do in humans is it can actually hop onto the protein that carries anandamide to its demise, to FAAH. So CBD can hop on and take the place of anandamide on these proteins, which are called FABP, or fatty acid binding proteins, and it will be delivered to the FAAH instead of the anandamide. And so with CBD, we don't see much of a dependence of use or even such a long-term use, because the more that you use it, the more that you can actually slowly but surely decrease your dose as your body's endocannabinoid system gets bolstered from all of that CBD that you have been ingesting.
So you mentioned anandamide, and I may have missed it, but did you explain what anandamide is?
I didn't. So anandamide, it is one of our endocannabinoids, along with another one called 2-AG. And anandamide, it comes from the Sanskrit word ananda, meaning bliss, and it is the thing that delivers that runner's high. So it's very similar to THC in terms of how it combined in the body and what it does, but it gives us a more natural high, and also is very helpful in the modulation of pain and anxiety and inflammation.
So FAAH, the enzyme, will break down our anandamide, taking away our bliss, but CBD can help mitigate that process. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Hey. Before we move on to the variant of CBD, which would be CBDV, let's talk a little bit about CBDA. At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned that Circle Labs really boasts the fact that their hemp oil not only has CBD, but they are really working with CBDA, the acid form of CBD. What is CBDA all about?
So CBDA also is great in terms of its increased bioavailability when consumed through oral ingestion. CBD especially has really low bioavailability, even more so than THC when we consume the decarboxylated form through oral ingestion. But you can consume CBDA and actually get, again, a lot of that anti-inflammatory benefit, pain relieving benefit, with that increased bioavailability through the digestive system. It can also be consumed very easily through juicing of the cannabis leaves and the flower, and can offer novel approaches in terms of looking at inflammatory relief and pain relief.
Excellent. Well, that's probably why I'm very pleased with these products for my arthritis. So now we move on to CBDV.
So CBDV, this one is cannabidivarin, as I said with THC. CBD also represents a family of analytes. So this is a compound that just has a slight change in structure from CBD. CBDV really has antispasmodic potential or anticonvulsant potential. It is the compound that we look to when we are looking to manage epileptic disorders. So CBD also has that therapeutic property where it is an anti-epileptic. I mean, Epidiolex exists as the FDA approved whole plant extract with a dominance of CBD, quite a big dominance of CBD for those epileptic disorders like Lennox-Gastaut and Dravet syndrome, most commonly found in children. But CBDV is thought to really be the one responsible for driving that anti-epileptic power. And so when we talk about CBDV, it's also a non-psychotropic, but really the most therapeutic property associated with that compound right now is the anti-epileptic potential.
Interesting. So I want to let everybody know that we are coming to the top of the hour, but we will continue as long as Emma will stick around with us to get through the slides. We have 4 more slides related to individual cannabinoids, and then we'll do a little bit of a wrap up. We'll have our giveaway, and then our final comments in between that. Before we get to the final comments, we are going to open this up for questions. I think that's happening before the winter. So I know that a lot of you are typing right now into chat. You probably are also going into the Q&A. We will be working through some of those as soon as we can. But now we are going to CBN.
CBN, so CBN or cannabinol is that oxidative byproduct of THC. So this is the one that you will see a much higher concentration of if you have old cannabis that's been left out on your table, exposed to light, exposed to air. The THC will transform into CBN over time. It's why storing your flower in an airtight container away from the light is very important. CBN, its most notable effect on mood is that it is a sedative. So it will initiate sedation. And that's why, again, if you like consume old weed, it can make you feel more sleepier than it normally would. CBN may also be able to reduce convulsions, stimulate bone cell growth, and it's not on here, but it does make a great antibacterial. And so it has been shown to act as an antibiotic, especially for like MRSA, staph infection. It can have some good therapeutic properties there as well. CBN is slightly psychotropic, so it will make you feel a little bit high, but it is more in that groggy zone.
All right. How about CBG?
CBG, one of my favorite ones, cannabigerol. It is the mother cannabinoid or the stem cell cannabinoid. There has been a lot of novel advancements in our understanding of CBG as of late. It can help to manage glaucoma. It can also help to manage digestive disorders as it reduces inflammation of the smooth muscle. It is non-psychotropic, so it's similar to CBD. It can help to regulate mood and regulate anxiety and depression. And it also has been found to be a great anti-proliferative. So for people who have cancer, it does possess some really promising cancer-fighting properties. So that's really exciting. And that was from a research paper that just came out very recently.
Say that again.
Anti-proliferative. Yeah. So
is that fancy for reducing or stopping the growth of tumors?
Yes. So it stops the cell's rapid proliferation, which cause tumors. And it also has been shown to reduce tumor size as well. So it can help to reduce the rate at which cells are proliferating unchecked, causing these tumors. It can also retroactively go in and reduce tumor size.
Interesting. Really interesting. CBC.
CBC, cannabichromene. This is the least loved cannabinoid, as it's not really seen in very high concentrations yet. There are breeders who are working on it. But this is one of the cannabinoids that does get made from CBG in the plant. So CBG differentiates into THC, CBD, or CBC. Most often in varieties, we have genetics that will code for the production of a dominance of THC, a dominance of CBD, or a mixture of THC and CBD. We don't really have a pool of genetics just yet that will produce a high concentration of CBC, but it can happen. CBC is also non-psychotropic, so shouldn't get you high, but it can relieve pain, reduce inflammation. It can also act as that anti-proliferative and help to reduce tumor size. And it also can have some anti-anxiety effects as well and help to regulate mood.
And now, two more recently discovered cannabinoids.
Fun. Yes. So our newest friends on the block, THCP and CBDP, this came out just a few months ago from Italian scientists that discovered these cannabinoids in a particular cannabis variety. It's called Italian FM2, and they were in relatively low concentration, but they were there. So a little bit of a background in the way that cannabinoids bind. Do you see that long tail? It just looks like a zigzag coming off that main rig. That is a tail of hydrocarbons. So it's made up of carbon and hydrogens. And a cannabinoid needs a tail of at least 3 hydrocarbons to bind to cells. As the tail gets longer, the cannabinoid gets stickier. So the longer the tail, the better that it will bind to our CB1 and CB2 receptors. And the way that you can count the amount of hydrocarbons is just count the places where the tail points. So in this case of THCP and CBDP, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hydrocarbons on its tail, whereas delta 9 THC has only 5 links on the tail, only 5 hydrocarbons. And this made THCP bind to our CB1 receptors for an observed 33 times as long as delta 9. So that's a much longer time for THCP to be binding to that receptor to cause an effect. And so what that could mean is that THCP is actually responsible for some of the more quote unquote intense side effects associated with THC, such as that increased psychotropic activity, what we would call hypomotility, which means that you're not really moving, you feel like you can't move. It's that sensation of like feeling glued to the couch. And then also something called catalepsy, which is actually a nervous condition where you feel kind of so anxious and nervous that your muscles tense up and get really rigid. And this could be this could explain the experience that people have when they do consume a lot of THC, where they just feel like they're kind of like stuck. They can't go anywhere. They can't do anything, just really anxious, but can't move. So THCP, then we look at this data and say, okay, maybe THCP is really the compound that's responsible for this like really major psychotropic activity, because it can bind to our CB1 receptors 33 times as long as delta 9. CBDP doesn't really show any novel alterations in physiology. So nothing really different yet from the CBDP compared to our main CBD. But again, these are very newly discovered. So we just know very little about them. They only exist in this one particular cannabis variety as far as we know right now. So much more to be learned and garnered from them, but exciting to have some new kids on the block.
Well, excellent. We have 3 more slides before we get to the Q&A, so I'm just going to breeze through them. Again, all of you will receive the video of this next week, so you'll be able to actually read the slides in case I'm going a little too fast, but I do want to make sure we get to the Q&A. So as a quick reference, here's one slide that kind of gives you instead of going with the cannabinoid first, we're going with the effect first, and then showing you some of the cannabinoids that will interact with your endocannabinoid system or other systems in your body and produce those kinds of effects. So that's a nice little quick reference guide for you. And how do you get the right cannabinoids? We always recommend look at testing results. So when it comes to THC products, in legal states, they are mandating testing is done, but they do not mandate, as far as I know, in most or all of the states, to test for terpenes. That is a little bit extra in terms of cost, and not everybody is testing for terpenes, except I do believe as our industry is maturing, more and more people are paying the extra money, getting those terpene tests done as well. But you're typically going to see the cannabinoid makeup in the products. Read the product labels. So if something is manufactured, you really want to read that label carefully. Also test results, but the labeling to see what's in it. And of course, look for the information about terpenes if you can get it, because as Emma said, it's not just the cannabinoids that have effects on your ECS, but the terpenes too. So remember that cannabinoids are part of what makes cannabis medicine, and knowing what cannabinoids are in your products can help you better achieve the effects you want, but it is extremely individual, so it's not a perfect science. And then not all products are alike, so definitely check those ingredients or test results. And when I say ingredients, a lot of the manufactured products add other things in, other herbs and other kinds of ingredients. So make sure you check those too, because those could also have effects on how effective or what that product will do for you. So now we are coming back out of slides into video. Hopefully Zoom will hold up, and we will talk a little bit as we answer some questions. And Erica, have you been going through some of those questions and getting them ready for us?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
The first one, Sarah was asking, initially when Emma was talking, I believe, about CBD, the question is, did Emma say that CBD requires THC to be active or vice versa? She wasn't sure if she heard that correctly.
Okay, so also I can't get my video on.
Let me see if I can help. Go for it.
Okay. It says you can't start your video because the host has stopped you.
Oh, host. Come on, Eric. Well, also we had that little bit of trouble when you were frozen, so
that's true.
And then okay. If that's the case, I'm taking myself off of the video because I'm just like, there you are.
Here I am. Okay, so to answer the question of THC activating CBD or vice versa, I want to give a disclaimer that CBD is still active. Even though it cannot effectively engage your ECS without THC, it still is active because it can interact with those over 15 receptor families and other different physiological factors to cause an effect. So I get this question a lot from people who are taking CBD isolates, for example. You can still feel a therapeutic effect from a CBD isolate. It may not be as much of a therapeutic experience as if you included other cannabinoids and other terpenes, but you may still feel something from just CBD because of the way that it engages so many different parts of our body. Now, when we're looking at the ECS, CBD cannot effectively engage the ECS without THC present. And that is where we look at that CB1 receptor binding. And so THC binds to the main binding site of that CB1 receptor. It fits like a key into a lock, and it just turns the receptor to open up a secondary binding site where CBD can bind to and then cause a variety of effects. Without THC present, CBD has what we call a very low binding affinity for both of the endocannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2. Without CBD, THC can effectively bind to our CB1 receptor. So it would be that without THC, CBD cannot effectively engage the ECS.
Fantastic.
I want to ask this question.
Go for it.
Sorry. Janice asks, my sister has severe insomnia, but has an autoimmune disease that causes dryness. She finds that both THC and CBD cause dry eyes and mouth. Any suggestions, I guess, to help with her insomnia?
Yes, I would definitely try out CBN. There are a lot of producers who produce CBN capsules or CBN patches. And specifically, if she is feeling that dryness from cannabinoids, then a transdermal patch may be great. A transdermal patch, I recommend to put it on like the inside of your wrist or the inside of your ankle, as the skin is really thin down there, and it will help to allow your body to absorb the compounds through your skin and into the bloodstream, giving you a more localized but also holistic effect and experience where it could still help with a full body relaxation and sleep without giving that dryness of the eyes and the mouth that is common to the consumption of THC or CBD.
She also asked, with a little bit of a connection here, can you recommend a cultivar or product that's high in CBN? I believe also the company I mentioned earlier, Level, I believe they have CBN. There might be another company, and that's California. So that's obviously, if it has THC or anything but CBD, we're looking at state by state. Because I don't know. I think there's also one that's a strip, like a strip that you can, a sublingual strip. I think California as well.
I am looking it up right now because there is a product in Washington that I was just talking to a person who has insomnia, is experiencing insomnia, and they were able to pick up a tincture that had 80 milligrams of CBD, 40 milligrams of THC, 20 milligrams of CBN. So that could be a really cool product option for people who are looking for insomnia. There are also, I know, tinctures that are just CBN, capsules that are just CBN. I think that Mary's Medicinal does make that transdermal patch that does have the dominant concentration of CBN. So dependent where you are in the world, do your research, look it up, and if you do come across a product or a company that you just want a second opinion on, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to check it out.
Oh, and somebody asked if we could get a link to them for the new studies showing the cancer-fighting properties of CBG. Could you share that with us, and then we'll put it in the email when we send it to everybody?
Definitely.
Erica, do you have another question queued up?
Sure. Tracy, just post this. When purchasing a full spectrum product, is there a minimum amount of milligrams you should look for, a maximum as well?
So not necessarily. I mean, that is going to be up to you. So if you are a person who requires a higher dose, then you will want a larger number of milligrams. If you're somebody who requires a smaller dose, then smaller number of milligrams, because of full spectrum, because you get that increase in therapeutic action and engagement of your not only ECS, but also just your body in general. Most people find that they need a reduced dose on the full spectrum products compared to the isolates or the distillates. So something to be aware of, but ultimately that is really going to come down to your physiology and the experience that you're looking for.
Erica, do you want me to grab one?
Yeah, I got it. So
Good.
let's see. There's a question here that says, I believe I heard Emma answer the question on the Cannabis Business podcast, but I thought I'd ask it here again. Why do our eyes turn red when we smoke or get high?
Fun question.
Not a cannabinoid question, but still fun question.
Fun question, and relates to cannabinoids, as cannabinoids, especially THC, does something called vasodilation, where it opens up all the blood vessels in our body, and that's what makes our blood pressure drop and our heart like pump like crazy when we are experiencing a THC overdose or just a high concentration of THC. And so when all of your blood vessels open like that and your blood is rushing, then it will also rush into the capillaries in your eyes and will cause your eyes to become red.
Wow, I had no idea.
And there you go. Science Wednesday. I love it.
Here's a terpene question. Can terpenes be added to your cannabis to maximize output?
Okay, so this is a tricky but a very good question. Terpenes can be added, and they often are added to final products, especially distillates. So as I described the process of making distillates, you will remove terpenes, and then companies, in order to supplement or mitigate that loss, will add in botanically derived terpenes or even cannabis-derived terpenes. Now, there is a problem with that. And the problem is that most of these terpenes, the way that we are separating them out from the rest of the plant is with heat. And anytime you apply heat to terpenes, they are so volatile. I mean, you can smell them. So if you add any heat above room temperature, you will degrade them. The oil cells will not be the same as the oil cells that are found in the plant material. And this can cause the production of something called a hydrosol, which has a good amount of water in it. It's also termed like floral water, and it's not that safe to heat and inhale. And so I do not recommend the heating and then inhalation of any additive terpenes. And we've seen that with the ongoing lung injury that's caused by vaping, that yes, it's due mostly, we believe, to these cutting agents, but there are also compounds that are relatively harmful in there. I mean, synthetic terpenes in a 2017 study showed that when they were exposed to high heat, they turned into benzene, which is one of the most carcinogenic compounds on the planet. And so for me, if I'm going to consume terpenes, I want to consume them orally, submucosally, or do it the old-fashioned way and smoke a joint or heat some good organic flower in a dry flower vaporizer.
Excellent. Somebody did ask a quick overview of the psychotic effects of CBC. Are they the same as THC? Psychoactive or psychotropic effects, I guess, CBC.
So CBC is not psychotropic. It won't really give you much of a high. However, it will help to regulate anxiety and depression. And so it may have some influence there, thereby making it psychoactive.
Okay. I think we are going to go back to the slides. We can keep our video on, just go back to a few more slides to wrap it up. I mean, I always hate to wrap it up. I just could listen to you for hours, Emma.
It's always so fun. I love it.
I learned so much, as I'm sure everyone else does too. But let's go back to our presentation and wind this thing down. Let's see, here we go. The winner. It's the winter time. Agave Social is the company that has generously given us one of these CBD cannabis journals. It's a little bit of a coloring book journal. It's almost like a grown-up activity book. And who is our winner?
Winner, winner, chicken dinner is Elisa A. You will be getting an email from me tomorrow requesting your information. Congratulations.
All right. And bonus, yes, you will receive a recording of this. And thankfully, our technology stuck together. And we will send that to you in about a week. We do edit off the front and the back end of this, which we call the backstage chatter. But you'll get all the good juicy bits in the middle. What is it? The phytoparticulates?
Yes, yes. All those good particulates, phytonutrients.
Phytonutrients, right. All right. Now, how do you join us? We have groups on Facebook that you can join. It's usually based on state in the United States or country. And we have gatherings typically, but right now, obviously, we are not gathering in person. So we are trying to put some of our gatherings online, which is really a neat thing. So it's not exactly a webinar. It's a lot more of a conversation, and the participants, the audience, can actually come in and be on video too, or on audio if they'd like. So the gatherings are a little bit different than these webinars. And then we're all over the social media webs as Ellementa Woman. And where can we find you, by the way? Where can we find you, Emma?
You can find me all over the internet. You can find me on Instagram at Emma Chasen or at Eminent Consulting. And you can also check out my website, www.eminentconsultingfirm.com. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions or cannabinoid science that you may want to know.
Thank you. Thank you. And Wednesday, April 22nd will be our next webinar. And we have a doctor in the wings. I will reveal who that is next week. And she will be talking about cannabis and CBD for pain and anxiety, talking about the links between pain and anxiety and how cannabis and CBD can help. So I thought that was quite an interesting twist. This Sunday, we also have a book club every month. The last Sunday of the month at 12 noon Pacific time, we have an author of a wellness book. Some of them are about cannabis, some of them are about CBD. We've got one coming up that is about everyday mindful rituals. We have another one coming up soon about orgasms, so not always about cannabis or CBD. So stay tuned for the book club announcements as well. And here is your special offer from Circle Labs. Thank you so much, Circle Labs, for being part of this, for supporting us, for helping us bring really good information, and Emma Chasen, to women around the world through our webinars. So thank you again. I do give this a personal endorsement. I am very careful with my personal endorsements, but I am finding on a daily basis using this product is quite helpful. And that's it. That is the end of our webinar. Emma, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's always the best time.
I'm glad. I'm glad. What I really love about our webinars is that we are truly having a conversation, but we're also really careful to put out good, solid information with fantastic experts like you. Thank you very much. And everyone, thank you for being here. And we'll see you next time. Okay, that's the end of the formal part. And now we can do a little bit more chatter as we say goodbye. I know it's getting late, particularly for Erica, who's over on the East Coast, for Janice, who's also over on the East Coast. And I haven't had dinner yet. I don't know if you heard my stomach growl just like right as I said goodbye. Anyway, this portion gets cut off from the actual recording, but I did want to just thank you again, Emma. This is always a lot of fun, super informative. I took some notes and I learned new things like CBN as the antibacterial. That goes on the slides for next year. And yeah, a couple of other things I just found really fascinating. And I love ECS tone. When we have Dr. Jessica Knox, she talks a lot about ECS tone as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I jotted that down again so I can remember that term.
Good.
Yeah.
I
All
love that
right.
there's new terpenes too, or new cannabinoids too. That's fantastic.
So
I
exciting.
love it.
So
Newly
exciting.
discovered though,
Newly
not
discovered.
new, right?
Not
Not
new.
new to the plant, but
New to
newly
us.
New
discovered.
to humans.
That's
New to
right.
At
humans.
least new to humans' knowledge. We have probably been experiencing their side effects for a little while.
For
Everybody who's taken too much at some
Exactly.
point knows what that is, right?
very interesting stuff. All right. Well, everybody stay safe.
Yeah,
Stay
okay.
inside as much as you possibly
Wash
can,
your
or if you
hands.
go outside, stay away from other humans. This is our connection right now. It's odd, and it's just so strange that people would say, oh, the internet is not real connection. You need to be in person to have real connection. Well, I've been online since 1987, 88. And I always have found internet connections to be quite strong. They could be very strong bonds. But now it's a necessity. This is our real way of connecting. And I'm really grateful for the technology, and I'm grateful for both of you. Erica, thank you as always for your magic.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it so much.
Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you. Stay well, everybody.
All
We'll see you
right,
really
everybody.
soon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.